action notion, like this, only the last one. You know, so a person typically has many different kind of experiences. Now I guess the third part of that question is that experience the same or different? It's actually the same and different. For example, like this cup of water, like I'm thirsty, I drink it. That taking a drink this water, one sip is different than drinking the whole gallon of water. It's different than swimming in the water. Different than becoming the water. Now, is the water different? The water is not different. But the depth of your experience of the water, oh, that can be shallow or deep. You see? For example, a person has a very shallow experience of enlightenment, and basically it's just a memory. 10 minutes and it's gone. That person will have no clue how that can be embodied in daily life. As opposed to another person who has it for 1 week, functioning, going to school, going to work, having someone yell at him, having some problem in life challenge. In that state, the manifestation of his wisdom, selfless wisdom, the way he experiences the world, his understanding of enlightenment is much more deeper. You see? So in Chinese we have this notion of 体用, essence and function. The person may have experienced the essence, but have no idea how to function of this wisdom, exercise this function. That comes from experience again and again and again and again. You know? So it's able to actually be in a state and actually interact with people. Being a board meeting in which people are having all kinds of self-referential ideas and 处理事情, you know, to deal with situation without vexations. Practice. That's a kind of not a beginner meditation question. This is a kind of advanced question. Okay. Well, yes.
There's a large gap between knowing something intellectually, so that in moments of calm you can analyze and recognize something, or that intellectually you'll believe something, but slowly and in controlled moments, and knowing something on a level that's the natural response, right? So that if you can say I believe this thing, but then when something happens, then if it comes up suddenly, say in a moment of stress, then you will have an immediate reaction that later that your conscious mind will repudiate because it conflicts with what you think you believe about things. Is there a physiological analogy to that sort of two levels of knowing something?
Okay. I'm going to introduce a third level. Okay? I said I'm going to introduce a third level. It's one thing when we know something, we read the menu, we're hungry, read the menu, that could be very delicious, I want to order that. As opposed to tasting it, actually eating the veggie meat. I was talking about that before. And then you'll be able to use it faster, like the knowledge. But that's completely different than when the self-reference is actually absent. When the person has actually removed the glasses. Because if, this is a kind of related to the enlightenment question again, if this selfless state is actually learned, then it can be lost. It is not something that can learn. Like if I'm only mindful all the time, then I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't react to things so kind of selfishly or so intensely and activating my amygdala. It's not about, it's not a conscious, willful state. So the state in which I'm talking about, the dissolving of the self, this third one would be the state in which the glasses is actually removed. So it's not an issue of how fast one would respond, or how one would remember it, or accustomed to it, or it's somehow like a martial arts movement. I do the kata stance, and I do the different forms, and when I'm actually in battle, I'm one with it, so I can actually respond naturally. It's not actually that process. Between this, that would be the second one, right? So your question would be like, first is knowing it, and then the second level of knowing it is you really integrating it. You have some experience of it. You're actually tasting the food, in which the forms that you learn are actually applicable. You're getting faster and faster. But between the second and the third, at least within the Chan tradition, it's a real transformative experience, and it's usually sudden. And the juncture between the second level and the third, the person has to use one of the two distinct methods of Chan. Unfortunately, I will not cover during this course because it's too far down the line, and we don't have time. Right? And those two methods are silent illumination and Gong'an. The Japanese pronounce it shikantaza or koan practice. Right? And these two methods will be able to help the person to make that actual change. As for the two levels of knowledge, it's a natural progression. And a point with all of us here, if you just go through the class and you don't really practice it, then it's like reading a menu in a restaurant. It's not going to really satiate your hunger. So I've developed, I put together 4 different methods to help a person to actually integrate, provide opportunities to integrate these in my limited understanding is in a more holistic way. Right? Developing concentration, but also meditating on loving kindness, which I'll talk about the brain changes, the brain wave changes in relation to the amygdala and the hippocampus. A little later, we'll talk about that. So you actually start to integrate neuron by neuron how we actually experience the world. So if one does all 4 of the methods that I teach today, then slowly, we will be able to get better and better. It's more like a grayscale between, and sometimes knowing intellectually and knowing experientially, these two are not completely unrelated and separate. It's more like a circle as opposed to kind of a dividing line between A and B. Sometimes when you experience a little bit, your understanding actually changes a little bit, and your understanding changes when you practice more. It's very integrated in that way until you get to this juncture. And then that's when you really need, like, if you just practice these two, you practice your daily life, you don't really need a fixed teacher to study with. You can practice with a group, like-minded practitioners, weekly sittings, you have the support of a group, you can sit, and visitors come and so on. But if you want to move to a higher level, then you really need to study with a teacher. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right, thank you. Someone from this side, maybe?
Anybody?
Or from this side? Okay, we'll go on. So basically what I said before in the process, where you guys miss all the good stuff. We talk about that. Now, look at that fascinating picture of the brain. You guys missed that. Sorry. So you have to see the video, or ask someone. This is the kind of biological mechanism through which stress is actually generated. Oh, there's a part in your question about the biological aspect. I will cover a part of that in the loving kindness meditation. Because sometimes these changes happen on a biological level, okay? Neurological level. People can change. Actually, I was talking about before the amygdala changing size and the prefrontal cortex level. So in the language of prefrontal cortex, it's not completely like just about changing these things biologically, and somehow that's considered enlightenment. Enlightenment's a little bit different. That will be the third kind of knowledge. The first two go about this way. So basically, this is the three. This is what my teacher lay out. This is affirming the self, maturing the self, and dissolving the self. So now we're getting ready to practice some of the methods. But just as an introduction of that, there's something within all of us that's quite unique, and that is our ability to focus and our ability to be aware of something, to make connections, to understand things. These are two aspects of the mind that's quite different. How many of you have read a book, you focus on every word, you open the page, you focus on every word, and you close the book, someone say, "What did you just read?" You have a hard time thinking about it. Or, you read this book, you can't focus on every word because everything, every sentence, you're able to connect with other things, like other knowledge. You're going to draw and integrate your knowledge. This sentence reminds me of how you're kind of making all connections, and it takes you like half an hour to do like 1 page of reading. How many of you have had that experience? That is like two aspects of mind in which we all have. Ability to focus and ability to be aware. These two must be integrated. And that I give the analogy of the sun. The sun's power, rays, is great. But if you don't harness the power, focus the power, then at most you'll just get a tan, and then you're just lying on the sand on the beach, getting a tan from the sun. But if you put a magnifying glass, or if you put a solar panel under the sun, then you really see the power of the sun. So the nature, the power of the sun must be harnessed, and it will be penetrated. So it's like our mind. If our mind is very scattered, like the sunshine is scattered everywhere, all directions, right? Then the way you look at the world, the way you shine the sun of your mind to this task, the way you see it, because the mind is scattered, you won't be able to see too deeply. But if you are concentrated, if you develop concentration, and you actually examine something, you'll be able to see very clearly what is actually happening. You see? So that is our ability. And that's the reason for meditation. Stripped out of all the rituals and all the religion, this religion, that religion. Basically, meditation is about cultivating the mind. Two things: focus and awareness. So some systems of returning back to Buddhism, Buddhist meditation focus on developing concentration. Another category of meditation focus on developing awareness. You see? So all the different systems of meditation can be subsumed under these two. In traditional lingo, the first type is called shamatha, which leads to samadhi,定. Second type is vipassana. The Pali will say vipassana. Right? The Sanskrit is vipassana, which will lead to prajna, hui,定, hui. But the root of it is something that we already have: the ability to focus and to penetrate. So, the uniqueness of Chan, speaking of the advanced methods of Chan, is the simultaneous practice of shamatha, vipassana, samadhi, prajna. 定慧君的